Hello there. Have you ever wondered why the people who care the most, the ones who give their all, often end up choosing loneliness? It's a question that might seem strange at first, but if you really think about it, you'll start to see the deeper truth. Caring deeply for others, while incredibly powerful, can sometimes feel like a burden. It can create a distance between you and the rest of the world, because when you invest so much of yourself, you can sometimes lose sight of who you are and what you truly need. Let's take a closer look at why this happens and why loneliness can often feel like a safer, more comfortable choice for those who give so much. First, let's talk about the nature of caring. When you truly care about others, you put a lot of energy into their lives. You want to be there for them, to support them, to help them heal and grow. This is a beautiful thing, but there's a flip side. Caring this much can leave you feeling drained, overwhelmed, or even taken for granted. When you give so much of yourself to others, you might start to feel like there's nothing left for you. This is where the struggle begins, because the act of giving without receiving enough in return can make you question your own worth and identity. In these moments, loneliness doesn't necessarily feel like a negative experience. Instead, it can become a place of refuge. Loneliness, in this sense, isn't about feeling isolated or abandoned, it's more about finding peace and solitude away from the constant demands of others. It's about creating space to reconnect with yourself, to replenish what you've given away. For those who care deeply, being alone doesn't always feel like being lonely, it feels like a necessary step toward regaining balance. But here's the paradox: those who care the most often end up feeling misunderstood or unsupported. They give so much, yet they rarely ask for anything in return. The problem with this is that others might not fully appreciate or understand the depth of their giving. People tend to take kindness for granted, especially when it's unconditional. And when you're constantly giving but not receiving enough in return, it's easy to feel disconnected or unseen. This is when loneliness starts to seem like the only option. It's easier to be alone than to continue investing in relationships where your efforts aren't being recognized or valued. Another layer to this dynamic is that caring deeply often comes with high expectations that others may not even know exist. When you deeply care for someone, you naturally expect them to care for you in return, sometimes in the same ways you care for them. But not everyone can meet those expectations, and that's where frustration and disappointment can arise. Over time, you may begin to feel that the effort of nurturing others is a one-way street, and the loneliness you feel isn't just physical, it's emotional. It's the feeling that no one truly understands the depth of your feelings, or the sacrifice you make in order to be there for them. The truth is, when you care that much, your emotions are in a constant state of flux. You're always giving, but your emotional cup may not always be getting filled up. This imbalance can eventually lead you to seek solitude as a way to protect your emotional well-being. Loneliness, in this sense, isn't a punishment, it's a self-preservation mechanism. It's your mind and heart telling you to step back, to reset, and to find peace away from the chaos of caring too much without receiving enough in return. And let's not forget the social pressures that come with caring deeply. In many cultures, there's this expectation that you should always be there for others. But what happens when you can't always be there? What happens when your own needs aren't being met, and you start to feel like you're being stretched too thin? This can create an inner conflict because you don't want to let others down, but at the same time, you're feeling drained and overwhelmed. The natural response to this is often to retreat, to take a step back from social engagements, and to prioritize your own needs. And that's where loneliness begins to feel like a choice to protect yourself and your energy. But here's the key: loneliness doesn't always have to be a negative state. It's important to distinguish between being alone and being lonely. Loneliness, in the context of caring too much, often comes from the feeling of being unappreciated or misunderstood. Being alone, on the other hand, can be an incredibly empowering experience. It's a time to reflect, to reconnect with your own thoughts, and to rediscover who you are without the external influences of others. Choosing to be alone can be an act of strength. It's not about abandoning others or rejecting relationships, it's about setting boundaries and taking time for self-care. When you care deeply for others, it's easy to lose sight of your own needs, but being alone gives you the space to put yourself first. It allows you to recharge, to think more clearly, and to return to the world with a renewed sense of purpose and clarity. Loneliness, when chosen consciously, is a tool for self-discovery and healing. It's not a punishment, it's an opportunity for growth. It's also important to recognize that loneliness doesn't necessarily mean being disconnected from the world. It's possible to care deeply for others and still maintain a sense of connection while being alone. You can still send love and support to those you care about, even if you're not physically present with them. Sometimes, the greatest gift you can give others is the space to grow, the space to figure things out on their own. And in doing so, you also give yourself the space to grow and evolve. Choosing solitude in a world that constantly demands your attention can be an act of rebellion against the constant noise, the endless expectations, and the pressure to always be available. It's a way to reclaim your power and assert your right to peace. But more than that, it's an acknowledgement that you can't pour from an empty cup. You need to refill yourself first before you can truly be there for others in a way that's healthy and sustainable. So, if you find yourself choosing loneliness, know that you're not alone in that experience. Many who care deeply for others end up walking a path of solitude, not because they don't want connection, but because they understand the importance of self-care. Loneliness, in this sense, becomes a tool for healing, for growth, and for finding your way back to the best version of yourself. And here's the most important part: it's okay to choose yourself. It's okay to take time for your own healing, to step back from the world for a while and nurture your own soul. Caring for others is a beautiful thing, but it's only sustainable when you've taken the time to care for yourself first. When you do this, you'll find that you can give more freely, more openly, and more authentically. And in the end, the relationships you build will be stronger, healthier, and more fulfilling. When you choose to walk a path of solitude, it's not always about isolation. It's often a response to the overwhelming noise and distractions of the world around you. In a world where people are constantly connected through technology and social media, it's easy to forget that real connection comes from understanding and valuing yourself first. For those who care deeply, the pressure to meet the needs of others can become all-consuming, leaving little room for self-reflection or personal growth. Solitude gives you the space to clear away the external chaos and focus on your internal world. It's about listening to your own thoughts, understanding your emotions, and getting in touch with your true desires. It's a space where you can hear your own voice above all the noise. For people who are always there for others, this can be a life-changing opportunity, time to heal, reset, and realign your priorities. Sometimes, it can feel like the world demands so much of you that you lose sight of your own needs. People who care deeply often end up feeling like they have to sacrifice their own well-being for the sake of others. This creates a dangerous cycle where you give and give, but nothing is given back. Over time, this leads to burnout, frustration, and emotional exhaustion. Choosing solitude doesn't mean you're rejecting others, it simply means you're choosing to take a step back and reclaim the energy that has been drained. So, the next time you feel the pull of loneliness, ask yourself why you feel that way. Is it because you're overwhelmed by the demands of others? Is it because you haven't taken the time to care for yourself? Whatever the reason, know that it's not a permanent state. Loneliness can be a temporary choice, a choice that leads to deeper self-awareness, greater clarity, and a more fulfilling life. Take care of yourself. Choose peace. And sometimes the best way to love others is to love yourself first.